guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. I have two familiar faces with me. Well, you can't really see right now, but he's in the background. And who I'm talking about? There he is. There he is. I have back with me, Buddy Bolton. You guys enjoyed the show so much with him the other night. I got a lot of positive remarks on how much they like Buddy. And I have with me Angel Lori. She was a part of my remote viewing group the other night that we did with Maya and everybody else. And Lori is she's the main star of the group tonight. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be doing another remote viewing experiment. Basically, Lori's gonna be telling her story, some experiences that happened in her life, and then Buddy's gonna be listening in the background, and he's gonna do like a live remote view. So it's gonna be really interesting. So a little bit more about my guest. Buddy Bolton is a stellar remote viewer. He's been verified by scientists. He's able to affect random number generators. He's just amazing, and I love having him on the show. And I feel like it's always a real blessing to have him on the show. Same with Lori, and Lori's my good friend. Me and Lori started off on a radio network together. Lori had faith in me when nobody else really did, and she took a chance and put me on her boyfriend's network. And ever since we become really good friends, and she's yeah. And a little bit more about Lori. She's a native New Yorker, born in Manhattan and raised in the Bronx, New York. Attended John Jay College of Criminal Justice and graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Her minor was deviant psychology. Worked professionally for New York City government as a supervisor within several agencies, including fraud investigation. Paranormal activity has always been an aspect of her life since birth. Her mother was an abductee from beings from elsewhere since she was 6 years old. Lori's paranormal involvement started demonstrating itself from 6 months of age with the ability to run across rooms, startling her mother, who had never seen the child walk previously. Activities include angelic interaction, ET abduction, surgical procedure, various brandings and markings placed on her body, ghosts, shadow people, telepathic communication with several ET races, and energetic synthesis with ET spaceship technologies. And then I have a list of topics that we can talk about tonight. These topics are going to be her mother's ET abduction, brief synopsis of childhood experiences, the human consciousness manipulation that happened to her in 1990, and her catching glimpses and glitches in the Matrix. So, guys, thank you for coming back on, Buddy. Thank you for coming back on, Lori. So good to see you as well. Thank you, guys. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Great. So, where do we want to start? Do you want to start off by just telling your story, Lori, and that would, and then Buddy can kind of remote view it.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm just going to start a little bit about the past because I think that's what created all of the experiences that I did as a child and as an adult. I think it all stemmed from my mother being abducted since she was about 5 or 6 years old. And she never told anyone, only when I was in high school and I was watching an episode of X Files. And during that episode, they had some graves. And I was sitting on the floor in the living room, and my baby sisters were there. And my mom walked by. And when she walked back again, she stopped cold and she was just staring at the television. And I didn't even really notice her. I was deep into the program. And she said, I've seen something like that. And I faintly heard her. And I was like, what, Mom? She goes, I've seen something like that. And the world stopped for me. The show stopped, the world stopped. I pushed her onto the sofa and I sat on the edge of the sofa and I was like, tell me everything. Because at that point, my mother became my case store, my case study. And she told me that ever since she was a little girl, she lived in North Carolina and her family, they were rural. They had like a little farm. And she told me about that she's been taken by these little beings with the big eyes and the big head, just like on that episode. And I was like, well, we call them grays. And she was like, well, whatever their names are, I never knew it. But she started explaining to me that, yeah, she's been taken since she was a little girl. And then she admitted to me when we lived in a house in the Bronx that she actually had an abduction out of that house. And that house in and of itself was like a nexus of energies. It was everything in that house. It was the shadow people. It was her abduction. We had like an angelic presence on the top 2 floors of the house, and then the basement was like a demonic presence. It was crazy in that house. But that was the house that she had the abduction. And when she told me about it when I was in high school, she also told me she never told her husband. She never told my stepfather. She never told my father, but she was admitting all this to me. She was like getting it off her chest. And she told me that in within that house, she was waiting for my dad to get off of, to get to work to call her. They had like little prayer meetings at midnight. And she would wait, by the phone with her Bible, for my dad to call my stepdad at exactly midnight. But she said that that particular night, as she was waiting, next thing she knew, she was laying back on her bed waiting for the phone call, and 3 grays came into her room. One, and it was 3, and each one appeared on each side of her bed and at the foot of her bed. So it was like 3. And she said they literally just took her up through the ceiling of the house into a ship. And she said they did some type of procedure on her. And the next thing she knew, she was back in her bed and the phone was just about to ring. So all of that happened to her like within a span of, say, maybe about 4 or 5 minutes, because it was almost midnight. So when she told me that, for me, I used to think, well, were me and my sisters abducted too? Because we were young. I was just a young teenager and my baby sisters were babies. So, I always had that in the back of my mind if we had ever been abducted. But when I did a past life regression, my higher self told me that no, I wasn't abducted, and neither were my baby sisters. It was my mom. And basically, my mom, when she came into this incarnation, she had agreed to allow for genetic sharing of information, which I guess translates into your butt's getting abducted. So, that's how I can think about it when people say you agreed to share your genetics. So that's why I said on my YouTube, I said, when you're coming in and they ask you that question, just say no. Just say no. I don't want to share. I don't want to be in the hybrid program. I don't want to make babies for you. I just don't. I'll take a pass. But obviously, my mother didn't. And that was part of her journey here. She never really woke up, even though she had these experiences. And my mom was like the most psychic person I've ever met in my life. The woman could look at you and know what you're doing. So, I always tried to keep her on her toes.
Lori, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Everything you just described is the classic and very specific events and the timeline and the whole structure of what is a repeat experiencer. And you nailed it. You nailed it down to the genetics. This is why it's happening. They're learning from our genetics and they're following certain family lines. And I believe they're following these family lines because their genetics are presenting different types of people that reflect their kind of morals and their ideals and their path in the universe. And they're trying to, genetically preserve and guide and catalog, they've been doing experiments on humans for a long time, and creatures and beings, and they're trying to make us more like them, more altruistic, more ability to connect to our powers. And ironically, you hear that sound? I'm in the Bronx too, by the way.
Oh, that's
so cool. I mean,
I don't get that here. I don't get all of that here.
Oh no, this is every 5 minutes. And what you've been going through is amazing. I have a video on my channel called the Experiencer Timeline, and it starts at around what you said, around 6 years old. There's oftentimes another thing when you're around 15. Then there's a big gap, and then later on you have a big experience or a trauma, and all the stuff starts happening. Orbs, the shadow people, and then people discover, oh my gosh, it's my intuition, it's me, it's my empathy, I've got a connection to this phenomena. Then people start exploring the psi and discovering they have these abilities and have wild manifestations of things and just wild synchronicities and sightings. So I think this says wonderful things about your genetics, about your family tree, and myself as well. A lot of the top psychics say all of this stuff comes from their super psychic moms. And you could understand, like, evolutionarily, while the cavemen are out hunting, or whatever, the women had to protect the babies. Right. That's the most important thing. And they needed everything, every little bit of intuition, everything to protect the family. So everything you have said has just lined up with this classic experience or timeline that we know. And people like you, in your case, is like really, bam. I think your case is an important case as like an iconic textbook reflection of this timeline. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Lori.
I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I just said, I think that's a great observation. I think that's kind of what's going on. I mean, if I had to guess, I mean, that would make sense. But do you feel like that, Lori, in your opinion, do you feel like there are some negative ones and positive ones, or do you feel like they're all like studying us, or what are your thoughts? Like, if you had to guess.
Well, from what my mom told me back then, and from what we would see on TV about the Greys, I always hated them. I hated them that they made my mother feel so scared and insecure. She never traveled. She never went anywhere. She stayed in a very confined, existence of life here because of that. So I actually hated that race of being for interfering in her life like that. But then as I grew up and I started learning about other beings that people are interacting with, like back then, I didn't know anything about what a reptilian was or an Arcturian or anything until these things seemed to present themselves to me. Now, I'm thinking back, and I tried to put it in like some type of chronological situation here, because I can group it chronologically or I can group it conscious wise. So chronologically, in June of 1990, that's when I was a New York telephone operator, and I lived in the Bronx, and that was when I had the experience of being totally controlled by an outside force. When it was my boyfriend was home with me, and I had my daughter. She was a little baby in a crib, and we were in my apartment. It's a basement apartment of a private house in the Bronx. And we were just getting settled for the night. Jessie was in her crib. My boyfriend, he was already passed out asleep. I got into the bed and I was getting ready to watch TV. And as I laid back, all of a sudden, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move a muscle. I couldn't move anything. I could only blink my eye. And that's it. And I was like, what's happening? First thing that came to my mind was, is this like some type of medical issue, like a stroke or something? And then before I actually got paralyzed, as I lay back on the bed, I heard this sound. It was a sound. It was a frequency that came through my house, and it sounded like someone shaking a pair of maracas. And the sound came, like that apartment was like a train style apartment, each room behind each other. And the sound came like from the front door through the kitchen, the living room, and then back to the bedroom. And it was maracas. And I can only emulate it with the sound of like, it was that type of a sound.
Though, right? It's weird. It's weird. Like, it's like, what is, it makes me wonder, like, why did they act like this? Like, why did they paralyze us? Is it because they're afraid of how we would react to them? Do you think that's what it is, buddy?
I think it's like a zoo. When you have zoo animals and they go in and test them and they have to tranquilize them to work on them, they want to make it the least stressful experience as possible. But no kid likes the doctor. And the doctor's actually, there to help you. And the thing about going through walls, at first, to people who don't understand this stuff, it sounds preposterous. It sounds like that just, obviously that defies all of physics. And we have found out recently some incredible information. When ATIP, which is the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, went to go brief Congress, they took the conclusions of 10 years of military experiencer studies, 10 years of those best cases from the best type of witnesses with the best kind of sensors. And from that, all that experience, they came up with this information for this congressional briefing. And part of this leaked out. It's a famous thing called Slide 9. And slide 9 talks about this exact stuff. The ability to pass matter through other matter, the ability to affect consciousness, the ability to affect the minds of decision makers, which it's not just decision makers, it's everyone, but they were phrasing it in that way to present the threat. Instantaneous sensor disassembly. Now you have to really sit on that one for a little bit and realize what it means. You know, they're not just electrically turning off nuclear weapons. They are disassembling aspects. Physical parts are being moved and so forth. So there's a whole new level of physics that we just don't completely understand. You know, we control space-time, energy, and matter to a small extent. Imagine someone with a lot more control. They could spread themselves across time, smear themselves, and only 1/10 of them, or 1/1 billionth of them is blocked by the wall, and the rest of them can go through, but it can over a certain period of time. So there's all these weird things of science that hopefully people like you, Lori, and others who experience these things don't allow those kind of weird effects to prevent you from speaking about the whole subject or about those weird effects, because those give us real insights. And I'm so glad that you shared that.
Well, in that instance, when I heard the sound, that sound come at me, then it flattened me and I was completely paralyzed. In that instance, after, assessing in my mind, because I'm more of an internal person, I'm always thinking, I'm always reacting inside of me, more so than speaking to others. And I came to the conclusion that no, this was not a medical issue. This was some type of attack. And the first thing that came to my mind, because I couldn't speak, was the name Jesus. And I said the name Jesus in my mind, mentally. And as soon as I said the word Jesus, whatever that force that was holding me down, paralyzing me, immediately lifted off of me. And then what I came to hear from my higher self during the past life regression was that it was a psychic attack by these beings in a ship. I, as my higher self said, it was reptilians, and they were attempting to take energy from me. I was basically just another meal on the buffet. It seemed like these beings were just out and about doing whatever, and they detect your frequency, your energy, your light quotient. And I guess if you seem juicy, they come for a snack. And I was the snack of the moment. And I had no idea about any of this back then. I just figured it was a ghost that attacked me. That's what I figured. That was how my mind wrapped around it, that it was a ghost that attacked me, until I had the regression in 21 when my higher self said something completely different. So in that instance, a consciousness not only inside of our body, but our physical machine was shut down, held down. And basically, like Buddy said, like your cattle or an experiment, they do what they gotta do, take what they're gonna take, and then I guess they will let you go and move on in that instance. So that one freaked me out. I had to grab my, once I was released, I grabbed my daughter out of her crib because I didn't know if they did the same experience happened to her. She was just an infant. She could have suffocated. I was scared. And the boyfriend would still sleep through the whole thing. I shook him awake and I told him what happened. He was like, he was probably dreaming. I said, no, I wasn't. I made him get up and go home. I took my daughter to my mother's house and I went to my best friend's house. And I made plans to move out of that apartment. And I had only been there for like about 2 months before.
Well, I should share something with you. I think this is really important to you now and in the future. I think that certain people are more resonant than others. I'll give you my physics breakdown. Ultimately, I really think of all this stuff as science. 200 years ago, there was a bunch of weird phenomena, and a scientist named Volta demystified all this weird phenomena. Some people said it was satanic. Some people said it was strictly God's energy. You shouldn't mess with it, blah, blah, blah. And it ended up to be the electromagnetic fields that we had lived in our entire lives as humans, but never knew it until 200 years ago. And that knowledge, look around us with the electromagnetic field in just 200 years. And right now, there's a bunch of weird phenomena. And it all has it has some connective things that bring them together. And I think this phenomena is going to be just like history has shown with other phenomena. It's new physics emerging. And I think physics will prove in the future that everything has a connection to everything. And physics already is saying that, a lot of physicists, because in terms of, in order for anything to have any value or existence, it has to have a relativity. And so every particle must have some relation with every other particle. And I think in quantum uncertainty, which is what they call it now, there's all this stuff about the quantum level that just becomes no longer solid. It becomes like chance. And in the future, that uncertainty will be defined as a new physics in the future. And we, being something, also have a connection to everything else. And some people have more of an ability to flex a muscle, to connect more with things psychically, or just to have more of a muscle in general. And so some people are very naturally psychic, naturally empathetic. They're resonant. Empathy and harmony and resonance. It means when two things connect, they start to share information, understand each other, exchange energy. It's kind of like love. They reflect each other. And in fact, it becomes a feedback cycle. One tuning fork sends the energy and the other one still sends it back. So there's this feedback. So your mind, being naturally strong, will send a ripple across this field. And it can be detected. And we will find out in time that it's not just their ability to connect to us, it's our ability to connect with them. So you have very powerful controls. Like when you said Jesus, that was like, boom, you get your control back. I'm Christian, so I won't go down the spiritual angle on it. But that, to me, you lay down drop that gauntlet, and there's no defeat.
It was like a microphone drop. Boom, Jesus.
Exactly. It's
Let
like
me
boom.
go. Boom.
Exactly. You got nothing on me. You got nothing on me. I rest comfortably in the palm of the 37 billion light year long creator of our universe, and I can flop and flip and fret, but I'm very safe in this palm. So the reason why. Oh, also, your consciousness has that connection. So your consciousness can help co-create these things. You need to keep that in mind going into the future. And then finally, an interesting little side note: how you describe that sound is just like I heard a gentleman named here it is, DC Long in North Carolina, at a military station. They're talking about the sound that a craft made. And you can hear that kind of description of the craft from a lot of different people. So that was really interesting to me how you described it. So I just wanted to share a couple of those things with you to kind of bring the pieces together. It's obvious that you have a genetically strong muscle, whatever it is. They're studying the basal ganglia, the amygdala, and the caudate putamen, which is a part of the brain. And they found out psychics have a tremendous amount more connections there. And I'm pretty certain you do too.
Oh, that's interesting. Let me see. Now, everything else in my life that happened from 2015 and 2016, the big stuff, the consciousness stuff.
Was there a trauma in the couple of years before that?
No.
Okay.
Now I had one psychic tell me that she detected like rape in my field, but as far as I know, in this body, in this life, I've never gone through that type of a trauma.
Yeah, I don't detect it either. Maybe I was just asking because that's about 50% of the people who get deep into their consciousness ability discover it that way. But you've already had the experience your whole life. So
I've always been internal. Even as a child, I solve problems. I think, I hold conversations. It's all internal, and that's how I create. I guess that's how I.
You're empathetic. You're a creator. I'm so glad. I'm not surprised you're a creator. creators empathize with things, and it's easy to destroy, darling. It's hard to create.
Yeah. Now, in 2015, what happened in that one that I first told you in 1990, that was the Bronx. Everything else from that point on, from me being an adult, has happened here in North Carolina, which I find fascinating. Like, what's going on in North Carolina? What is
That's so weird. I just
is
mentioned
it the ley lines here that bring all of this craft and whatnot here?
I just mentioned North Carolina about this guy, DC Long. That's so weird. I just mentioned that too, and you're from North Carolina. It's just odd to me.
Plus,
lately I've been
there, guys. Remember, there's like military bases, and there might be UFO bases in the mountains, right? Like the Blue Ridge Mountains. I heard there was like a UFO base there or something. I'm not sure.
I think you're right.
I don't know.
I've heard the same thing.
And I think on the coast of North Carolina, there's silos
and a lot of sightings. The whole East Coast sightings with Kevin Day and the ones that were all in Mystery Wire, a bunch of craft have been seen consistently off of that East Coast area there. So you're in a hot spot, but then also you're like a lightning rod, you know. So
that's not.
It's positive. It's positive because you now have the ability to take these energies and your connectivity to things. Like as a healer, when you do prayers to heal others, I believe it's going to have a deeper resonance. It may not be more effective because ultimately, to me, I believe it's all, you know, from our creator. And there's other factors involved too. The patient's mind over matter, and a bunch of other factors. But I think you'd be a really great healer. And I think you should try to do some basic little simple psychic exercises they have.
When you mentioned that, I wasn't going to discuss this one this time, but in 2021, when my daughter had inadvertently given herself diabetes, and that was during the COVID time, and she was taken by ambulance to the hospital, and we couldn't even be with her. Her husband couldn't be with her. I couldn't be with her. They wouldn't allow us to go to the hospital during that time. So one night when she had been admitted and she was in the ICU, I, had been praying for her all day, and I went to sleep that night, and I woke up to go to the bathroom, and it was like around maybe 3:33. It's like all during the 2020, 2021, I always wake up at 3:33 exactly. And I woke up to go to the bathroom, and then I said, well, let me get a bottle of water. I went to the kitchen, and buddy, when I went to the kitchen, all of a sudden the thought of my daughter came into my mind. And all of a sudden, my body started moving. This could be another consciousness control thing. My body started moving, and I started doing these movements with my hand. Have you guys ever seen the show on Netflix called The OA? It's about that program is about human beings who have the ability to move through the timelines and move through timelines and actually go into other realities by doing movements with their whole body. It's like sacred movements. And I didn't see that before this happened. And the next thing I know, I'm in the kitchen and I'm doing movements like mudras with my hands, indeterminate. I can't even do it now. I have no awareness of it now. But then it was deliberate. I was doing these mudras. I did something my third eye. And it was just like art. It was like love. It was like art. And I'm doing this. And I did this. And the intention was to send this energy to my daughter. And I did all of this stuff. And then I released it. And when I released it, I literally felt things shoot out of my head. Like, now I call it a crown chakra. And it went out of my head. It shot out of my eye and went to only her like a surgeon's knife. And when I called her in the morning, I asked her, I said, do you feel better? She goes, Mommy, I saw you last night. I saw you last night. You was here with me last night. I said, well, I've been with you all night. And something really weird happened around 3:30 in the morning. She goes, Mommy, I saw you. I heard you. I felt you. I felt energy. And I was like, holy sugar. And of course, I immediately went on Facebook to tell my entire family that something so strange again had happened, but it had actually helped my daughter. And it actually helped to heal her. She was released 2 days later. But also, when she was released 2 days later, there was a doctor there. And I had warned, while my daughter was in the hospital, I had warned her. I was like, be very careful of your energy. Because at that point, I was aware of energy and how you have to protect yourself. And especially being that we come from my mom. That's what I told. We come from my mom. So you got to protect your energy in the hospitals. Because I never get sick. I don't go to hospitals. I don't allow anybody to take my blood because I just feel that they're going to detect and just screw with me. So she was ready. She told the doctor. The doctor says, well, you're so much better. You can actually be released now. Then another doctor came in, a female Asian doctor, and she was like, no. I want to run some more tests on you. And my daughter was like, but why? They already gave me my discharge papers. And she goes, well, I'm gonna go home. And she goes, well, you speak to my mother. And she gave the phone to the doctor. And the doctor got on all joyous and, jovial, like, yes, Miss Harkin, and we're going to keep your daughter for another test, blah, blah. I said, excuse me, miss, my daughter is healed. And my daughter will be leaving momentarily. She signed her discharge papers and she will be leaving your hospital. She will not be there for another test. And all of a sudden, I felt the energy change of the woman. I felt it, buddy. I felt it. It was like she had like a facade, whatever being or energy she was, it was like a facade. And when I said that to her, it kind of ripped that facade off. My daughter said when the lady gave her back the phone, she goes, her whole demeanor changed. She was cursing. What doctor curses in a room with a patient? The doctor was cursing at a nurse, telling her she's going to stay for this test and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, my daughter said the lady literally looked like a vampire or something, just like her whole demeanor changed. And I said, well, I ripped that facade off when she thought she was going to get some more of your energy. And so I think that maybe either I didn't ask myself that during the regression, who did I channel, or did I channel a higher aspect of myself that is a healer? Because I know in one of my lives I was a medicine wheel.
I think if you have this ability and this connection, you're a healer. You're not, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just a medium. I can only do mediumship, or I'm just a basic psychic. I only do psychic stuff. But all of these are connected to that field. Everything is connected to that field. So it's really important not just to think positive thoughts, but not to think negative thoughts or to wish ill upon somebody or be angry with somebody. You may have been angry with some people in the past, and then something very terrible happened within a day or two. And you might have thought, did I have something to do with that? Could my negative thinking? And as you get better with these things, the imperative to control one's own mind and emotions becomes greater and greater. So you can heal and you can hurt. And initially, oftentimes, it can happen accidentally. You don't know that you're doing it. A lot of people have psychic ability and they don't know. They just thought, oh, I was lucky, or intuition, or, so, just more for the people in the audience. I think it's important to keep that in mind. You may think it's silly, but this happens, and it happens in such a way that it's been experienced by many people again and again and again and again. And I know scientists who are upset with themselves over an event that happened in the past where they had wished ill will to something or somebody, and something terrible happened. And so it's not just people, it's also, scientists and the investigators into this stuff. So if we connect to everything, make that connection a good one.
I think you're right, because I think also I think that was 2015 when I had the experience of the car accident, that I know I brought that on to me. I was a field investigator, I was a fraud investigator, and I had my partner. and we were out, working for the day, work for New York City government. And we ran across a couple of friends that had a car because I was late to come to work that day and we couldn't get the city car. So we was taking the city bus all over the Bronx doing investigations, and we ran across them and they drove us to our next investigation site. And when we were in the car, we got into a conversation about how my partner Christine had been so lucky because she had like a dog bit her, and now she had a lawyer and she was going to get like a big lawsuit of money. And little Miss Lori said, how come something like that can't happen to me? How come I can't get no big dog like that? Don't you know, 2 hours later, we were both laid out on the street of the South Bronx. We got hit by two cars that careened into each other. One hit me, one hit her. And in that experience, I'm laying on the ground. I don't feel any pain. I never lost consciousness. I got hit in the stomach area, the leg area. I didn't feel any pain. I remember flying through the air. And the only thing on my mind was like, oh my God, is my skirt up? Am I showing my business to the Bronx? And
that's worse than getting hit by the car, right?
No, that didn't mean a thing to me. It was like, am I showing my business? And where's my shield, my investigative shield? Where's my credentials? Where's my badge? Wow. And the next thing I know, I'm about to get up because I feel fine. And next thing I know, this man appears right here on my shoulder. And he's like, Lori, you're going to be fine. I saw everything. And I look up and it's this cop. It's a white man. He's got like brownish hair. He's got like these cerulean blue eyes. If I wasn't like concerned about where my business was showing and being actually hit by a car, I probably would have hit on him, And I'm looking at him and I'm a germaphobe. So me actually being on the ground in the Bronx, and it's the South Bronx, I was freaking out. And I just wanted to get up. I wanted to get up because I didn't know what I landed in. I didn't know. It just sat right with me. I just wanted to get up. And he's like, no, just stay still. And I looked at him and I literally used explicatives at this man. I'm like, who the F do you think you are? I'm getting up off this ground. I am not hurt. I don't see no blood. I am fine. And I don't know how he did it, but buddy, I did not get up. And I swear to you all, the only thing I wanted to do, my entire will of being who I am, wanted to get up off that ground. And I found out once the ambulances came, and they got me loaded up. And of course I got into they put one of the guys that hit me into the same ambulance as me. And I'm laying here like, let him get his own ambulance. I don't want him in my, and he hit me. Where's my partner? My partner, she got thrown down the whole other side of the block. People didn't even know she existed. I told them. I was with my partner. We worked together. We're investigators. And I saw her leave my peripheral vision a split second before I went flying. So they got to her too. But this cop was by my side. And I was like looking around for him once they put me into the ambulance. He was nowhere to be found. And once they got me to the hospital and they did the x-ray, the doctor point blank told me, he was like, Lori, if you would have stood up, you would have died. Period. You have a broken tibia and fibula on my left leg. I didn't feel any pain or broken bones. I didn't feel anything, but I noticed my body was starting to swell up.
And after a hit like that, they really are concerned about head injuries. You might not feel, and so it was,
nothing. It's
so weird that happened with both of you guys at the same time, and that experience of just having them blanked and then you're somewhere else. That's just intense, and you can learn over time to predict things or manifest things. There's a woman, I'm trying to remember her name. I think it's Helen Hadsell, who Time magazine called the contest queen. She would use this ability that you have to manifest all these things. She won trips to Paris, multiple trips to Paris, and money, and all these different contests.
Well, why can't I do that?
You can. There's things to do. There's something called the Bankston method for manifestation. You have an advantage because you're extra resonant. These
I need
events.
somebody to teach me that, because I felt so bad, because I know now that I manifest through my mouth. That's why I've learned to mind my words, what I say, especially when I say things when I'm angry. I try not to say it, and I try not to think it, because I mean, I feel on some level I've gotten so angry that I've destroyed universes with the way that I let things explode out of me. But I know in that instance, I directly manifested that accident. Yeah, I got money out of the accident, and the cop that saved my life didn't exist. The court case, the documents, he didn't exist. Come to find out, during my regression, my higher self said that was my angelic father. Father. How do you have an angelic father? That was my angelic father that saved me. And at the rape, and when one time when a gentleman was about to rape me, my higher self said it was Archangel Gabriel. This is the consciousness one. Archangel Gabriel took over or moved my consciousness to be able to, I think, keep me in a particular timeline and not let me pull myself into another timeline. Because during that instance, which incidentally happened right across the street from the house that I lived in, where I was held down. This was across the street. He was a neighbor. He came, I was a comic book collector. He collected comic books. We used to, shoot smack back and forth whose collections was bigger. Then he says, well, I'll show you. And I was like, well, show me your collection then. Let me see if it's bigger than mine. And I, went up to his apartment. Now, on the way up, internally, red flags and alarms were going off in my head. You're a female. Why are you going into this guy's apartment to look at his comic book collection? Lori, stop. But I'm very strong-willed, even against myself. So I continued on. We went into the apartment, and I saw he had a roommate in the back in the room, and I was like, extra warning, another dude in the house. You're a female. But anyway, I went to his room to see his collection. Next thing I know, all of a sudden, he's talking all of this. Lori, I like you so much. I think I love you. You're my weakness. And next thing I know, he's pulling his member out of his pants.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm in my head, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like straight warrior. I went into like straight warrior mode in my thinking, like, okay, he's got a landline phone over there. I'm going to grab that landline phone. I'm going to smack him across the face. I did take notice of how to get out of your apartment with the locks. So this is how I'm thinking. I'm thinking methodically, because I'm criminal justice trained. I was going to be I wanted to be an FBI agent, but then I changed my mind, thank God. I just have that way of thinking. And he was continually talking with his member in his hand. And as I'm making up this protocol to defend myself, next thing I know, I'm being put into the back of my brain on the right side, the back right. I'm existing here in my body. All of whoever Lori is was existing here. And then something else took over the frontal lobe. Something else was here.
This is so amazing.
And my higher self said it was Archangel Gabriel that was speaking through me to the man. And though I could see everything and I could hear everything, but I wasn't in charge of my own body. I couldn't move my arms. I wasn't moving my arms. Whatever consciousness was in the front of my frontal lobe was moving it. I was with the occipital lobe. I'm back here in the occipital area, and it's in my frontal lobe. And it's speaking to him. It's telling him, basically what I remember is, you don't want to do this. You are beautiful. It's just like love, 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 love as a force. Love as a force of change was coming out of my mouth. I cannot for the life of me remember everything that was coming out, but it was love. It was verbal love coming out as energy. And the man put his business back in his pants. He turned around to me. He apologized profusely. He walked me out of his apartment, down the staircase, out of the lock gate, and blessed me. And that was the last day I ever saw that man on the block. And he lived right across the street from me. And in my regression, it said that it was Archangel Gabriel that spoke through me. And what I wanted to ask you is, was that true? Was it an angelic energy that spoke? And why put me here?
This is an amazing story. I've heard this specific description of someone coming into one's consciousness, moving their consciousness, and kind of coming and taking control. And you even put your hand up here. And this was like a week ago. A person was telling me he had to do a medical procedure and he didn't know the medical procedure. He didn't know how to do it. And it was put right here in his brain. And you hear this kind of thing, and I think it's really fascinating. Of course, that experience is the kind of experience that artists get when they create a song. They're like, it's a muse. This idea kind of came to me and it flowed as if I'd always known it, or as if it had pre-existed, or I didn't control it. It just wrote itself. A lot of people get that kind of feeling. And I think we're deeply connected to other beings. And I would suspect beings that are very advanced can do things that would boggle our mind to us, like shifting our consciousness. Maybe something that saw you and cared about you said, you know what, she's not going to handle this. I can calculate she can't do this alone. So I'm going to shift her back a little bit, and I'm going to present these more, I'm going to present myself. And now that could happen two different ways. I'm sorry.
It sounds to me, or like you have a higher, like your higher self is really in touch with you. Like you're really in touch with your angels. Like I
think
see why
so.
you call yourself Angel Lori now. That makes sense. Like I mean, like you're really in tune with your guides, your higher self, your angels. I mean, I've been kind of listening in the background. I haven't said much, but I heard everything, and it's really amazing what you were able to encounter. I mean, it was like really fascinating, to be honest. It's real. That's the second time I heard it. I heard it the other night on the podcast, and I heard it now, and it's just it's amazing stuff. Wow, it is.
It's really interesting for a few different reasons. I think it's reflective of our deep interconnectivity with everything, and you have to be very honest with yourselves. If that last incident was told to me by someone who hadn't had anything previously, I could say that, this could be her real world higher self. It doesn't have to be an angel or another being. It could be her adopting what she needed in the moment. And I don't discount that possibility. And, a rational person will take that into consideration. But when you have a series of experiences and they're all connected, you have to accept that data as well, too. I think we all have this superhero within us that can come out, that can defend us, that knows how strong we are. Our species, if you believe about, evolution, all of our relatives, our genetic ancestors were all winners. They were badasses. They survived disaster after disaster, mass extinction after mass extinction, diseases, wars, all of this stuff. And there's super abilities hidden within you, and you can call those up, or they can call you up. And that's what happened. I think that's such a wonderful, optimistic story, and a story, once again, about your strength and your connectivity, dear. So I think these experiences, you are so stereotypical in terms of the events, and your descriptions are all, to me, from a really very real and specific evidentiary place. And I think you can learn this stuff more and more, dear, and really be able to help others, because there's a lot of people hurting and going through a lot of difficulties with this stuff. And I think you can really make a difference.
I just think that I think that the experience with the guy who wanted to rape me and didn't rape me, I think that there's just so much science in that, because I didn't research it then. It was just like just another unique experience. But now that I'm researching it, your occipital lobe, and especially the right side, this is vision, your what you see. But your frontal lobe is speech. That's speech. That's what speech and creativity. And Archangel Gabriel is allegedly the angel that delivers messages. So I'm like so fascinated with this experience, because that's the angel that delivers messages. That angel took over my frontal lobe and did whatever that business was of love, because I love people and I love humanity, but not humanity that's about to try to rape me. I wanted to destroy him. That's what I wanted to do. That's what the Lori wanted to do. The Lori was ready to defend herself at all costs. And then this energy put baby in the corner, literally in the corner of my own head, and took, like they say, Jesus took somebody took the wheel, because I make a joke of it on my YouTube that my guides and everything, as they saw me going up this staircase to this strange man's house, they sent out a red alert like Star Trek. She's about to go off course. Man, somebody's got to volunteer and get in there and save her. She's gonna, I think every time I have these experiences, I think that I set off alarms for these guides, and they just go into action because they're like, Lori's going off the rails again. Somebody get in there. Who's going to take one for the team? Gabriel, go for it. Angelic Father, you deal with that, because we don't like her mouth. I think that I stress out a lot of my guides with the choices that I tend to make in my life, but they tend to protect me. So I'm like, I also think in the consciousness of the car accident, was I trying to get an out? Like when people say, when you have like these experiences, was you trying to make an exit strategy? Was I trying to make an exit strategy by willing that I wanted to get up? By getting up, I would have accidentally killed myself.
Yeah, your subconscious can do things negative to you, and you wouldn't think that that's possible. But look at your dreams. Dreams are subconscious, and your subconscious controls the dream. And in dreams, you can do very negative things to yourself. And this is really interesting for a bunch of different reasons. And I think it really goes to the power of self. I think it goes to, the broken speech area is right here. It's a part of this front area. It's on the right side back here. Mm-hmm. And that's the portion of the brain that deals with speech. And there may be conditions. Remember how we were talking about how the ripple goes across, the pond? When a serious situation like that happens, you might be seeing a ripple. And these, we can call them angels. We can call them whatever, I prefer it, angels. But you can get strength from these, real strength, not like imaginary strength. You see it time and time again with mothers who have to lift up a truck because their kids are stuck under it. There's superpowers within us all, and this connectivity, it makes me feel a lot better about existence. The day before yesterday, someone asked me to do a mediumship. I don't like doing mediumships that much because I have my own issues with, people in the past passing away in my heart. I'm human, and I don't like doing missing kids stuff or crimes. I'm called to that on occasion. I can't say no, of course. The last thing I want to do is waste the time of investigators or come into a space that's so sacred and delicate and waste people's time or anything. And so mediumship's the same way. You're dealing with people who have very deep emotions about someone who's passed. And so I did it because someone asked me to, and it was for their friend. And they mentioned this on Twitter. I got so many specific details down to the name of the mother. Now you can say, well, that could have been coincidence that you got the mother's name, but her specific hobby, things they used to do together, very specific things. So sometimes you can really tap into that resonance. You can tap into that field. And whether it's Gabriel or someone's, mother from that they miss, all these things you have a connection to. And I believe, like you said before, you do have these higher powers, higher angels, higher beings that do look over you. And I think your story is a really special story. I think for a bunch of reasons. And what's great too is you are a lovely ambassador of it. Someone like me, I'm kind of scrappy looking, but someone like you can really express and show to others the reality of this stuff. And I just commend you for talking about it and sharing your very personal experiences. This is going to help other people as well listening to this and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one going through these things. I commend you. I love you, Lori.
Thank you. I love you too. Well, you don't know that in 2020 is when I woke up. And when I woke up, you were one of the first people I came across. I came across you on YouTube. I came across Robert a little later. And I don't believe in coincidences. These are synchronicities that were supposed to happen. And as soon as I saw you, I adopted you as one of my angelic charges. And I adopted Robert as one of my angelic charges. So I am your angel, your earth angel. I am Robert's earth angel as well. And it's like, you was like one of the first people I ever sent money to on YouTube. I never did that before.
Oh, you're such a good person. You're such a good person.
And then in 2020, the only reason why I woke up, even after all of these extraordinary things, you would think I would have been like some type of spiritual guru by that point, but I wasn't. I woke up in 2020 because I had excruciating pain in my body that I never felt before. And it was my upper quadrant, my back, my neck. It was just incredible pain out of nowhere. I don't get sick. I don't get colds. I don't get flus. I don't get waylaid by anything physical. And it was waylaying me. And I started looking on YouTube to try to figure out what's happening to me. And I found out, and what resonated with me was it was my etheric seraphim wings. Etheric wings were coming out of my etheric body, but my physical body was feeling pain. And that pain brought me to these other realizations and understandings and conceptual ideologies about this reality. So that's what woke me up. That's why I assumed the name Angel Lori, because I got my angelic wings. And when I was a young person, I wanted to start a rock group, a Christian rock band in high school. Rob, you probably didn't even know about this. I never told you this. I wanted to start a Christian rock band in high school. My best friend, she was going to be a part of it. And we were going to be named Seraphim. We were going to be named Seraphim. And now I find in 2020, I'm waking up because I am or was in some incarnation in the get-go of it all, Seraphim. And that energy stays with me.
You're an angel still. You're an angel still for sure. And I consider you part of my family. I think none of us do anything alone. There's trillions of forces and things and people that have uplifted you to get you to this moment, right down to your shoes, the door that's built by someone else and designed, all these different things. And I can't survive without you, and we can't survive without each other. And the biosphere is the same way. We're a system and we're a family. And I think that family extends past our atmosphere. And I think we have a family of life forms out there that are a majority, vast majority, are benevolent. And this is a dawn of this really special time. And people like you are the ambassadors to reason. When people start experiencing all this stuff and freaking out, you can be like, hold on, relax. That pain. Oh, by the way, that pain thing is a classic thing that happens with high-end psychics, where they'll go through a period of pain that may even be self-brought on in order to teach you not to be negative, because your ability to hurt others is stronger. So it's kind of like a self-censorship. Can you go through pain for a period of time and not lash out at anyone or not be extra cranky? I went through this very bad. It was called burning bones. And it feels like your bones are burning and your body is ache and pain. And I don't know if you had the burning sensation with it, but it'll happen for not like a week. It happens for a while, and then it goes away. And it goes away oftentimes when you've come to this place of enlightenment. And this is described in the Vedic texts and the Yoga Sutras. So that's a really interesting experience. And a lot of tribes naturally try to have the coming of age ceremony deal with deep pain.
Wow.
And the reason why you do the deep pain is so you can handle the other realities of life in that cultural context. But it's the same thing in the esoteric world. All my research, I'd be, resources and stuff. It's a pleasure to share with you and help whatever I can, and we can help each other. You're going to have insights to things that help others, and others are going to have insights to help you. So I would love to see you and everyone learn more about their abilities and explore them. It's fun.
It is. And I like Rob, I like the group interaction ones. That was so much fun.
I'm gonna do that more. I'm gonna do that more. We'll put together a psychic group too. You know what I mean?
That was so much
me, you, buddy, and maybe a couple other people that are really into like psi stuff. Like we could do a psi group. Would you guys be interested in that?
I'd love to. We could do a basic class too. I don't think there's a basic like entry level class, and we could, Lori, we could start Lori into some of the experiments, and she's a representation too of the other people out there in the audience who want to learn but don't have all the the best advice coming to them. Maybe we could do it as a team, but whatever you want. I'm game, Rob, and my connectivity to Lori is strong. She's a really special angel.
You guys are the best. You really are, and you, both of you, in your individual expressions, are helping people. And you guys inspire me to do a YouTube so that I can just get it out there. People are like, oh, why do you share? I've been sharing since I was a kid. Anything weird that happened to me, I shared it. My friend is like, Lori is the person that tells the story. She's the one that has the experiences. And then when I found out in the regression, in a life that I lived in the Pleiades, on a planet called Dakota, I was a medicine wheel dancer. And what the medicine wheel dancer does is she's a teacher. I'm a teacher of it's like languages, all these light languages. I teach them to souls and physical beings that want to be in the earth realm. I teach them, and I was told that I also taught on Mars in some, I guess, reality. In Mars, I taught what you would call ET to be more human, and I do this dance, and in that life, I just released that one on my channel like a couple of days ago. I'm like a native looking person, like what you would call a Native American. I look like a Native woman, and a lot of the things that was described to me, I do now. Like she always wore the feather in her hair. I have feathered earrings that I've been wearing since high school. I wear the feathers. I always did like a little bit of a native, because I have Cherokee in my family. So I always did a little bit, a little touch of the indigenous and some of the things that I did. When I found out about that life, it was so fascinating because it was in the Pleiades, and I worked for what was said it was the Andromedan Council as the medicine wheel dancer. I worked for the Andromedan Council on the Andromedan Council's bio ship. And I was like, when I learned that, I was like, this just seems so fanciful to me. I don't. And then I talked last week on my friend's program. I asked a question, and she does psychic tarot, and she also had an experience with what people call the Andromedan Council. And when she did the tarot cards, which I consider is a science, I consider tarot kind of like a quantum science. It's really interesting how tarot works. I don't do tarot myself.
It's another medium.
It delves into quantum.
Yeah. I think it's another one of the different mediums. There's a lot of different things that are basically, I call them magic feathers, to help you connect to that Akashic record. It's something that you believe in so much. And if you believe in it, that goes to your subconscious, and your subconscious says, okay, it's true. I connect with it. And dowsing rods, some people use dowsing rods as a tool. They're connecting to the same thing as the Ouija board, the same thing as the tarot card, the same thing as ESP trainer app. They're all connecting, but just different modalities. They used to throw bones or look at coffee on the bottom of cups.
Tea leaves. Yep.
Yes, exactly. And it's not that the leaves were powerful or the cup was powerful or the sticks from dowsing were powerful. It's your consciousness is powerful. So it's you. You're powerful. I think it's
the tarot reader said that the cards, that she showed, I put it on my channel. There is an Andromedan Council. There is an Andromedan Council biosphere ship, and she saw what the ship looks like, and it basically can go quantum. It is an enormous ship, but when it needs to, it can actually change its size, buddy, is what she saw. It can actually get smaller or larger as needed. I think that's amazing. But she says that it still utilizes portals to move.
That's really interesting. You hear that oftentimes. Even UFO witnesses who are right next to each other will see different sizes and different shapes. And it reminds me of, stealth fighters. How they work is they have little panels on them, and it reflects back to the radar a smaller and different shaped object than the real thing, the craft, the UFO, or the stealth fighter. And as the stealth fighter moves, those little panels are reflecting off of different spots of the craft back to the radar. So it can change its look over time. And another radar station could be, 5 miles away and see the size differently because it's reflecting off a different panel. Now, let's take the same thing with radio waves that bounce off and change that frequency to photons, light waves, bouncing off a craft that may have a visual stealth. And so to one person, it might look like something, but to someone right next to them, because their perspective is different, they're seeing something else. But what we know is that whatever you're seeing that's in stealth is usually much larger than it appears. So this changing of shape can be a real physical thing, and it can also be an appearance optical thing. So I think that's really cool that you mentioned that. That's a consistent UFO description. Oftentimes the inside of the craft is bigger than the outside.
Well, in one, like Doctor Who, the TARDIS, the inside is bigger than the outside. And then the last one I'll share with you guys is when I believe these both were in 2015 here in North Carolina. The one where in January, February, March, it was March 17th of 2015. And then the other one happened December 3rd of 2015. But in March, that's when here in North Carolina, I spotted the cigar shape going across the sky. It was, you know, I had went shopping after work to get some groceries, and this was before I had my car. So I was waiting at the bus stop with my groceries in the cart. And Robert, I noticed a plane that was going overhead way off in the distance, only because the sun, you know, the sunlight was kind of setting and the sunlight glinted down the length of the plane. And so I saw it and I was like, oh, that's pretty. And then I didn't make any to do about it. I was like, that's pretty. And you know, I'm internal. So I'm thinking about other things, the things that I bought. I don't want my stuff to melt. And then something in my subconscious says, take another look at that. And I looked at it. I turned and I looked at the plane closer and I realized it didn't have any wings. It just had that back tail. You know how the planes are like this, like the tube, and then that little, you know, the tail of the plane, it just had that tail. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, oh, that plane ain't got no wings. That plane ain't got no wings. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'm thinking all the time, I'm thinking, but I'm thinking at it, and I'm thinking at it, I'm like, you ain't a plane. Because at first I was like, well, maybe it's a missile. Maybe we're at war. And then I was like, you're not a plane. I was like, if you're not a plane, show me you're not a plane. And as soon as I thought that, this thing, which was going in this direction, doubled back on itself like that and went in the other direction. And I'm looking there with my mouth hanging all the way up into the ground. All the way up into the ground.
That's not a satellite.
I'm like, whoa. And then, like Buddy said, it started morphing. It started changing its shape from what I could see. It went from a cylinder looking like a 747 plane with the back tail and no wings. Then when it doubled in on itself, it kind of looked like two large black birds, like it's separated. And I'm like, yeah, Lori, you're out there now. And then it came back together. And then I thought at it, I'm gonna need you to come closer. And before I even finished that statement in my head, it was over the parking lot of there's a Food Lion supermarket and a Family Dollar. It was over that parking lot, parked in the sky about 500 feet above me. And I'm looking at it like, oh my God, you're beautiful. That's what I was thinking. I was like, you're beautiful. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like visually trying to take in everything I can because literally it came to me. I asked it came to me. So I'm drinking it all in. And I later when I got home, I drew pictures, and I'm a terrible artist, but I did draw pictures. It was a triangle, but it wasn't like with the sharp edges. It was the rounded edges of a triangle. And it had the light, like big circle pads of like, I guess light, because it was lit, a glowing kind of light, you know, where the edges of the circle would be. And it had it was like not metallic, it was like a cream color, and it had two sides on that triangle that were clear. I could see through it. And but all around this triangle was energy waves. I've always been able to see auras and people's energy fields. Energy waves was coming from every direction of that vehicle. And I'm looking at it and I'm like having this connection to it and like throwing love at the ship, not even concerned about who might be in it. It was the ship that I was in love with. And I come to find out when I read back through my notes that I wrote down about that day, I started calling that ship my ship, my ship, my ship, my crew. And but I didn't have any like connectivity to whoever was operating it. Then when I went and I made a MUFON report, so I have a MUFON report number and everything. And I went to my friends and I told them about this experience, and they're like, Well, was it positive or negative? I said, I don't know, but the ship was positive. I communicated with the ship. So in that instance, I always make a joke on my channel that okay, they were cruising in the sky because when it started morphing, it seemed like they were playing in the sunlight. It seemed like such a human thing to do. It didn't seem alien
Wow.
to do.
This is a funny other little great point. You have a lot of these great little points. You know, a lot of these craft, as well as the beings, are, quote, new. They're second generation life forms created by another. And when they are released to go do their missions, they do a systems check. And in humans and other species on this planet, species checks from new beings is called playing. And you see this in the Westfall UFO case with the kids at that school that they saw the aliens jumping around and playing. You see this when a craft will break off a bunch of little craft and they'll start to, it literally looks like they're playing with each other for a second. And in this Vegas case that just happened with the craft crashed into the backyard, the beings were playing with like the bulldozer. And you hear this playing again and again. And I think it's reflective. It's not reflective of them being silly or not intelligent. I think it's the exact opposite, that they're doing a systems check and that they're designed very specifically for these missions. And don't let a systems check make you think that they're not incredibly capable of completing their missions and foreseeing a lot of the possibilities that could confront them. So I think you mentioning that play is another thing that goes to the benefit of your case. We could go into so much. Your case is such kind of like, I haven't even found the right word for it. Not iconic, but we could go through each one of these stages. The shadow people stage. We could go through the just beginning of the ESP stuff. And I think we should definitely have a bunch more shows in the future.
Yeah,
if the audience
is an hour and a half. Is there anywhere else you wanted to show, Rory, before we finish up for tonight?
No, that's it. I just want people to feel safe, to be able to tell their experiences, because I've had cousins and friends like inbox me about their experiences that they will basically probably never tell another living soul. But they told me, and I hold that in confidence, that they feel safe to share with me. And I tell them, it happened. These things happen. Don't be afraid. Don't have fear. Just keep the wonder of a child in your heart. Let that settle into your heart, that we live in an amazing place here. It's an amazing experience. There's amazing energies around us. And what people always tell us, that we're not alone and our guides are always with us, which is also kind of maybe a little creepy, because it's like,
it is, right? Who's watching me?
Are they always watching us? I go to the bathroom, are you right next to me? Like, you know, but I just want people to feel safe, tell their stories, and share. Just share, because then all these little puzzle pieces we can put together and get to some real truth. I want to get to the truth.
You know, Rob, there's nothing I could say better than that. That's this. If I had to do a closing out statement too, I would say the exact same thing. And I'm so glad that I've been able to connect with Lori, and I think you're a tremendous ambassador and will be more and more so. And you don't even know when you're saving lives, when you're making someone feel like, oh my gosh, it's not just me. You never know. 5 minutes of empathy from a Lori can save a life. And all of you guys out there too, you know, take that little extra time to listen to people and keep, you know, open mind, because we don't know everything. And I love you both.
Love you both.
You guys want to tell everybody where they can find you at real quick, buddy, or whoever wants to go first?
I'm on YouTube at Alien Protocols, all one word. You can, if you have any requests or anything you want, viewings or any stuff, tips, my email address is alienprotocols@gmail.com.
Okay. And Lori?
And you guys can find me on YouTube at Angel Lori 555. And if you have any experiences that you want to share, I'm not interviewing people right now, but if you want to share, you can just send it to angellori555 at yahoo.com. and I'll gladly listen to you and be there for you.
Yeah, and it's for me. I'll have all my links in the description. Like you guys can support the channel and donate if you want. All the viewers out there, and I appreciate everybody watching and your support. And yeah, thank you everybody. Whenever you guys watch this, thank you everybody, and thank you, Lori and you, Buddy. I appreciate you guys both so much. And that's it. And thank you everybody. Have a good night. Until next time.
Good night.
Oh, I love the
Love.
pen. Thank you, Lori. That's so cool.
You're welcome.